The art of DJing, the real art of DJing, for me, belongs in a club. Dark space, hopefully with smoke, minimal lights, and people dancing and sweating and not looking at the DJ. If you have 10 people, 15 people looking at you, it's great, you know. The rest of the people, you want them to look at each other. I'm not romantic about it because it still exists. Tons of scenes, tons of parties, and you can see that all the big DJs will tell you that, you know, they would rather play in intimate stuff.
Montreal is just one of those places like Barcelona or Berlin, which just has like, or it always did have, I don't know, it's a little bit different now, but I guess it just always had like a good, crazy side to it. It's quite a liberal place. There's some cities that have more weirdos, more freaks, and I think that does a lot for the party scene.
Always. It's always been a party city. Since the official language is French, the lyrics content of the song weren't as important. People dance on the beat, people dance on the groove. So they don't really care about the message, where, you know, if you play in New York or if you play in Toronto, people will actually get down with whatever the lyrics say, positive or negative.
The French in Montreal is interesting. Apart from the political drama that it causes in the city, it gives us this edgy sort of sexiness.
The scene in Montreal, it's so wide now. You gotta have like the Lunis, Jacques Green, hip-hop stuff, but you also got like all that minimal house, new tech connection.
Montreal was always oddly isolated in its own way. It was a big city and it was close to New York. And in that own orbit, you had time to develop things in your own kind of unique way. I think that's why a lot of great music came out of Montreal, like especially in the 90s and early 2000s.
I started a record store in December '86 because I couldn't find music in Montreal, and that was the beginning of a 21-year adventure. Inbeat brought house music to Montreal, and at the same time brought the DJ culture. Back in those days, clubs were spending, let's say, $100 a week on record. None of the DJ owned records. Most of the DJ didn't own a pair of headphones. They didn't own anything. They walk in the club like this. Records were there, headphones were there. It was their house. They punch at the job, that's it. I changed that. I was hired to play in a club, and then I went to play in another club, and the club owner called me and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean what I'm doing?" He's like, "Well, you're playing here." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm playing here once a week or twice a week. There's 7 days in a week. I'm a DJ." He's like, "Well, no, you're not allowed to play, you're my DJ." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm your DJ? I'm not your DJ. I mean, I bring my own music," because I had the record store, it was easy. I said, "I bring my own music, I bring my own needles, I bring my own headphones. You know, what do you want?"
Tiga is probably like the most important pioneer of the electronic scene in Montreal.
Tiga, the almighty Tiga. He put Montreal on the map.
My name's Tiga, and born in Montreal. I'm a producer, DJ, artist. When I was about 17 or 18, I think I kind of made a vow to myself to have an empire. Yeah, I fell in love with this idea of dance music, so I just made a checklist, and I was gonna have a nightclub, I was gonna throw parties, I was gonna have a record store, I was gonna have a record label, I was gonna have a clothing company, put it all in little notebooks, and then just went through them one at a time. I think I tried to buy Vice at one point. No, I never wanted a magazine. So the nightclub I opened was called Sona. I think it was the second biggest club in Canada for many years. Sona for me epitomized the business end of things, and by the end of that, I got this idea in my head that I didn't want my hands dirty anymore with commerce. And at that point, I sold all my businesses and said, consciously, all I want to do is make music and DJ and just be surrounded by creative energy. So we're at Turbo headquarters, which I started in, I think, '98. Most of what we do is still searching for good music and trying to develop the music. We just did this Picnic Electronique. Turbo did a 15-year anniversary party.
Picnic Electronic. It's kind of what's happening in Berlin. It has that vibe. It's very festive, it's outdoor, it's spring to summer.
Around 2003, we started doing Picnic Electronic. Just 4 guys who decided to start an event. Let's try something else, and let's try to bring that vibe, that electronic music that is good, to somewhere else than the nightclubs. 3 years after that, we started also Eagle Fest. At first, we thought it was more of a joke. Just crazy idea of, okay, we're living in the winter city. We have to deal with that for 4 months. So why don't we just say, fuck off winter and, you know, big party.
I can't wait to see what the future holds for not only those guys, but for your younger promoters that are influenced by these guys and say, you know what, well, how could we take it to the next level?
The funny thing is, like I was talking about, like Montreal being a little bit insulated from like mass culture and mass change and like globalization. But in the end, it's just the winter. That's the insulation. That's what protects it. The winter's too brutal for this place ever to be fully integrated. You know, it just keeps it because nobody can really hack it.
I'm part of the people that really believe in that entire DJ culture, even if today I think that it's really out of control. You know? Yeah, today it's like a monster, right?
I meet people now all the time. I go to parties in Montreal, and some of what I remember as being very vintage, like Quebecois, Montreal vibe, seems partially to have been replaced with just a slightly more like international, Brooklyn, hipster, blah, blah, whatever, but that's happening everywhere. But Montreal's still pretty resilient. I would like to point out that I think as far as cities that fight off the generic global kind of hipster culture, I think Montreal's got a good shot of doing it. Because it is a pretty weird place.